Ladies and gentlemen, the President-elect of the United States, Joseph Robinette Biden Jr. and Dr. Jill Biden.
Even before rioters stormed the U.S. Capitol, COVID-19 had ensured this would be an inauguration like no other. Joe Biden stood to be sworn in overlooking the National Mall, where flags replaced people, a masked audience sat socially distanced, and where 25,000 soldiers stood guard in a city whose streets were deserted amid fears of another mob attack.
I, Joseph Robinette Biden Jr., do solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute
the office of President of the United States.
Office of President of the United States. Will, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend
the Constitution of the United States.
the Constitution of the United States.
So help you God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Mr. President.
As he embraced his wife Jill, Joe Biden capped off a lifetime's ambition, his third try, to be anointed America's commander-in-chief. And addressing a nation more divided than ever before, he took the first steps to attempt to heal and rebuild.
This is America's day. This is democracy's day. Democracy is fragile. And at this hour, my friends, democracy has prevailed.
Biden didn't mention his predecessor by name, nor dwell on the violent scenes that erupted on this very stage. Instead, an appeal to Americans that they could only overcome the challenges of COVID, climate and racial injustice by coming together.
We'll press forward with speed and urgency, for we have much to do in this winter of peril and significant possibilities. Much to repair, much to restore, much to heal, much to build, and much to gain. It requires the most elusive of all things in a democracy: unity. Unity.
There was no shortage of former presidents in attendance, Michelle and Barack Obama, whom Biden served as vice president for 2 terms, President Bush, and President Clinton, who stood alongside wife Hillary, her mask no doubt hiding a huge smile, in contrast to the grimace she wore 4 years ago, as she, having lost the election, watched a brash billionaire from Manhattan be sworn in. He, President Trump, of course, wasn't there, having departed earlier for Florida, the first incumbent to snub his successor's inauguration in more than 150 years. It was left to the Vice President, Mike Pence, the man who 2 weeks earlier fled for his life as pro-Trump supporters charged the Capitol. He chose to skip his boss's send-off to be here instead.
I, Kamala Harris, do solemnly swear
that it was also the day of the lady in blue, Kamala Harris. With husband, the first second gentleman, Doug, looking on, she too made history as the first woman and the first woman of color to become vice president.
So help me God.
So help me God.
But it was an altogether more somber tone last night when they paid tribute to the Americans who've lost their lives to COVID-19. 400 lights at the Lincoln Memorial to commemorate the 400,000 now dead. Today, a moment of silence.
And my first act as president, I'd like to ask you to join me in a moment of silent prayer for those who've lost their lives and those left behind, and for our country.
COVID the priority, but the new president has a heavy in tray, with a flurry of executive orders to undo the more egregious policies of his predecessor. America will rejoin the Paris Climate Agreement. He'll reverse the so-called Muslim travel ban and, in time, potentially revisit the nuclear deal with Iran that Trump controversially tore up. There was no customary welcome to the White House, as Obama had graciously given the incoming Trump. Instead, the newly sworn-in president and vice president will greet the troops gathered outside the Capitol. Biden's promise lingering in the air.
On this January day, my whole soul is in this: bringing America together, uniting our people, uniting our nation. And I ask every American to join me in this cause.
Not just his soul, his task now, Biden believes, to heal the soul of America. With the convulsive era of Donald Trump past for now, that long road to healing can begin.
Well, let's go live to Siobhan. Now, Siobhan, these inauguration ceremonies are sacred. The speeches that are so important. It is a real chance every 4 years to reboot the idea of America. How did that go today?
Well, Matt, I have to say that there is a real sense of a new dawn here today after that speech from President Biden. Remember, Donald Trump in his inaugural speech famously promised to end what he called this American carnage. But 4 years on, with the pandemic raging, an economy ravaged, the ongoing racial reckoning and now the threat of domestic terrorism to boot, carnage feels exactly what he's left behind. And it's that Joe Biden somehow must set about healing from today. Some of that, no doubt, will come with the introduction of new legislation this afternoon to undo some of the now former President Trump's most damaging and divisive policies. But beyond policy, Biden has the far bigger challenge of becoming healer in chief, if you like, after 4 years of Donald Trump successfully pitting everything and everyone against each other, culminating, of course, in the ugly events of January the 6th. Biden has to somehow find a way to reach out to the 74 million Americans, let's face it, who did vote for Donald Trump and who still believe, Matt, to this day that the election was stolen from him and who he, Trump, is promising that he won't leave behind. That, I think, is Biden's biggest challenge, but it certainly won't happen overnight. It will be a long, hard slog, but it does finally begin today.